All right, gang, it looks like we are live. That's right. It's Dr. Steve here. Good to see you guys. We are live because we got double breaking news. Well, one that matters and the other one that's just utterly clownish. But for the one that matters, and I'm sure you all know it or you're hearing about it now, Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Tucker Carlson and Fox have officially parted ways. As for the clown world news, Don Lemon is finally booted from CNN. That's right. Don Lemon is now officially past his own prime. So we're going to see the latest on what's going on and where both Fox and Tucker go from here. I do worry that we're going to see a forking. I think Tucker is going to well, I shouldn't get ahead of myself. I will not get ahead of myself, but we're going to see where Fox and Tucker go from here. And then we're just going to basically get a laugh on Don Lemon. Super chats are up, so go ahead and ask me your questions if you like. I'll answer them in due course. And also make sure to click on down below, the link down below. Get yourself a wonderful free gift. And this is something not just for you, but for all the patriots in your life. For weeks now, you've been asking me when and where you'll be able to access my brand new research guidebook about how to escape the Great Reset. Thousands of patriots like you have reached out because you're desperate to build a life of faith, family, and freedom in the face of the Klaus Schwab bug-eating World Economic Forum. Well, I'm delighted to announce that the digital version is here, and the best part is we're giving it away absolutely free. Just click on that link below and learn the 5 steps to escape the Great Reset, keeping your family and your sanity intact. You're going to learn a number of methods patriots are using all over the world to escape the Great Reset. You're going to discover how to build a life that isn't reliant on woke corporations or institutions. And I've even included a list of daily news sites I actually read myself on a daily basis. Now, this isn't going to be available digitally for free for very long, so don't wait. Click on that link below and download your free digital copy today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. My, oh my, it is now official via an announcement from Fox News that Fox and Tucker Carlson have split. His last show was Friday, April 21st of last week. So that's it. The Tucker Carlson show is officially no more at Fox News. Now, thus far, there's been no word as to why, but many are speculating that it may have to do with Fox News's recent settlement with Dominion. So this cancellation comes within a week of Fox agreeing to pay upwards of $700 million in a settlement they reached with Dominion. By the way, in the end, most experts argue they're not going to pay anywhere near that. They're going to be able to negotiate that price downward over the subsequent weeks. But because they were back to back, one happens and then the other, there is speculation as to whether there's a causative relationship there. We'll have to see as more information comes in. But regardless, I think everyone would agree here. This is utterly devastating news for Fox. For Fox, this is devastating. Already their shares are down about 4% the last I checked before I came on to this live stream here. And that's because Tucker is the king of cable news. I mean, it wasn't long ago. Tucker was reigning. He was reigning as king with over 4 million people tuning in to his episode there. Just weeks ago, he clocked in at 3.5 million. No one even came close to Tucker. And he's the main reason, I would argue, he is the main reason that Fox News was able to recover from its ratings disaster after November 2020. You all, of course, remember that disastrous call, that early call that gave Arizona to Biden, right? That moron at the Fox News decision desk. So there he was. His name was Chris. What was it? Was it Chris Steyerwalt, if I recall? This guy, Chris Steyerwalt, he's a liberal Democrat, as it turns out. And for some reason, he was in charge of Fox News' election desk that called Arizona early for Biden, literally seconds after the polls closed. He refused for hours to call Florida, even though Trump ended up winning Florida by almost 5 points. He refused to even call Texas for hours after it was clear Trump was going to win it by 10 points. Same with Ohio. But in a state where Biden was certified the winner with barely 10,000 votes separating him from Trump, this moron called that state for Biden literally seconds after the polls were closed. And it destroyed the entire momentum that Trump had up until that point. Trump was ahead in all the key battleground states. This moron at Fox calls Arizona for Biden. Then all those states stopped counting, told their staff to all go home, and we all know how it ended up. Well, Fox News suffered dramatically from that botched call. Their ratings over the next few weeks imploded. Forbes reported that Fox News, for the first time in 2 decades, let that hit you. For the first time in 2 decades, Fox News viewership fell behind both CNN and MSNBC. Fox ratings began to dip, of course, immediately after the disastrous coverage of Election Day, where they enraged conservatives, their conservative audience base, who up until that point had to just deal with that odious Chris Wallace. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the pathetic pandering towards Joe Biden on that election night that caused their average viewership to drop almost immediately 20% as compared to pre-November levels. Over the first full week of January 2021, CNN ended up ranking first among cable news networks. Of course, CNN now has since lost that, right? They've gone down 90% their audience. But since then, they were followed, since they came in first, and then were followed by MSNBC, and then in a distant third, you had Fox. And that was the result for weeks after that November election. The first 2 weeks of 2021, in the first 2 weeks in January 2021, Fox averaged nearly 1 million fewer total daytime viewers than MSNBC. That's how bad it was. They were over 1 million, if I recall, fewer than CNN. And to add insult to injury, every day for weeks after that, Fox trailed both MSNBC and CNN in the 25 to 54-year-old demographic that's so coveted by advertisers. So things were so bad at Fox that, according to adweek.com, they finished last in every single time slot during the week ending in January 9th. Well, of course, since then, Fox News has made a dramatic comeback. And they've been dominating the ratings. CNN and MSNBC have been imploding. Fox has been surging. And why? Well, I think we could see 2 reasons. One, first and foremost, they got rid of some of their most odious left-wing hacks. All right. Well, Juan Williams is still there. Geraldo's still around, but mostly just to laugh at. But, Donna Brazil, they finally got rid of that smug leftist Chris Wallace. So they got rid of all these left-wing hacks, number one. And then number two, and I would say most importantly, they embraced more or less fully the MAGA America First populism of Tucker Carlson. And their ratings skyrocketed as a result. Again, he was drawing in 4.5 million viewers. No one was even coming close to that. When all is said and done, Tucker has, over the last few years, and most particularly in the last 2 or 3, has articulated a populism, a broad-based anti-elite populism that has galvanized the single biggest audience in cable news. That's, after all, what populism does. Populism, as it turns out, tends to be rather popular. Right? That's a Nigel Farage quote. Yeah, the thing about populism is it tends to be rather popular. And that's why I'm not concerned in the least for Tucker. He's most likely going to find himself, really, frankly, as a new spokesperson. He's going to be the center of the new parallel patriot economy that's rising up, and I think eventually taking over the legacy woke one. In fact, I think he might even help lead a full-blown parallel economy revolution in parallel news media. So Tucker's future here is bright. I mean, I have no doubt about that. What I do doubt is the future of Fox. We'll have to see how they pivot from this. Keep in mind, gang, we do have our super chats are up. So if you want to ask any questions during this, go ahead, just throw it in and I will answer it in due course. We're going to have to see how Fox pivots from this. If Fox thought getting rid of Tucker was a good idea, they're going to find out the hard way just how popular populism really is. If they realize what a bad idea it was, but we find out with more information coming out, they just had no choice, well, then, God bless them. They're just going to have to figure out some way of recovering from this. But losing Tucker is losing your goose that lays the golden eggs. I mean, he was the ratings king par excellence. And again, yeah, Josh has already shown this. I mean, their last I had checked in, their Class A shares for Fox Corp were down 5%. Are they back up? They're back up to about 1.13%. Are they averaging out, I think, a minus 3.36%? So we're going to have to see how even their share goes. They need all the money they can get to pay off Dominion. Again, it's the Dominion payoff isn't going to be anywhere near the $700 million, as I understand. Now, as that's going on with Tucker, we got the latest development in clown world, and that's Don Lemon. He's finally gone. He's finally been fired. And we saw this coming. We saw this coming for months now. He was, as far as this channel was concerned, he was just on a death watch. He was hooked up to a breathing machine at CNN. I mean, they demoted him from his primetime spot. Well, I don't know if 10 o'clock's primetime, but nighttime spot. They demoted him down to the basement of CNN in the morning show that nobody watches. He wasn't getting along with anyone there. And so he's finally gone. I mean, we were able to see that. We saw that with Stelter. We saw that with Cuomo, and we saw that with Lemon. They weren't going to last. I don't see much going on for Don Lemon. He's going to be put out to pasture, much like Chris Cuomo has been, or Brian Stelter. Unlike the Patriot movement, unlike populism and the growing parallel economy, there really isn't much out there for these guys. Don Lemon, I mean, where is he going to go? Is he going to go to MSNBC? Well, no one's going to like him there either. Certainly Chris Cuomo wasn't able to make that pivot. I think that happens with people working their way up. Like we saw with this disastrous reporter that's been pushing all this anti-Trump nonsense she goes from Politico to MSNBC to CNN, all this sort of stuff. I talked about it in our first video today. But I don't know if Don Lemon's going to be able to make his way down to MSNBC. I don't think they're going to like that. We'll see. But look, this is well-deserved. I mean, yeah, this is a guy who openly compared Trump to Hitler. All right. This is a guy who called Trump a racist, who called Trump a fraud, a con man. He even questioned at one point Trump's mental fitness, all the while giving bumbling Biden, who can't even walk a flight of steps, who doesn't know where he is half the time after he delivers a speech at a podium, who opens his mouth and literally slaughters prepositions. He gives Biden a total pass. It was very hard to watch. Again, Don Lemon is the kind of guy, Tucker Carlson actually referred to him as this. Don Lemon is the kind of guy who ought to be embarrassed, but isn't. He ought to be embarrassed by what he says and does, but he isn't. And that just makes him all the more comical to watch. But frankly, there's no such way you can have such drivel coming out of your mouth for very long before even your colleagues start getting weary of you. And that's exactly what happened to Don Lemon. That's why I think his firing was something that you could see a mile away. After he lost his primetime gig, because he was a ratings embarrassment. I think it was up in around 40, 40 slot or so. Lemon was moved down to CNN, the morning show basement. His ratings got even worse there, if that were possible. And then news came out that he started getting into all these tiffs behind the scenes with morning show co-anchor Caitlin Collins. Word on the street was that he actually screamed at her behind the scenes. It had such a temper tantrum, accusing her of constantly interrupting him. And it was just so bad that she reportedly ran out of the studio. She couldn't take it. And the film crew that leaked this scene, the film crew who witnessed it were literally left shell-shocked by it. And we even saw the tension. I did a couple of videos on it. We've even saw the tension between the co-hosts on one of their latest shows when Lemon absolutely torched one of Caitlin's interviews. Again, it was just so embarrassing the way he was insulting her on air. She was interviewing a Republican congressman, and he was just like, why, in effect, say, why do you even do this? Why do you even give them the time of day? No, this is important. Remember, they were going to break away. They were going to commercial, and he stopped the commercial. No, this is important. You should not be doing interviews like that. I mean, it just went downhill from there. So Don Lemon's out. He's gone. And unlike Tucker, I think he may be gone for good. We'll see. I don't know if there's any market for a moron like that. So there you have it. Two cable news giants, one because of his astonishing reporting and editorial brilliance, the other because he's a buffoon and a clown that less and less people enjoyed laughing at. But both gone, not just in the same day, but almost in the same hour in terms of the announcements. So this is going to be a fascinating development to see how these two networks pivot. I think CNN will continue to just be CNN. They're doing everything they can to supposedly try to pivot more to the middle and try to win centrist voters. CNN, of course, has been pivoting to the populist right. We'll have to see what happens. Maybe CNN and Fox News are going to try to duke it out to get those center right, center left, middle of the road viewers. We'll have to see. But whatever it is, it's going to be enjoyable to see how one like Don Lemon fizzles off into obscurity, and one like Tucker Carlson, I think, takes an even more leading role in the rising populist movement. Over to you guys. Any questions, Josh? Do we have? I was not able to look at the chat. Very good. Breadmoth, Tucker, Lemon, next Maddow. Let's go. Yeah, I would love to see. Well, Rachel Maddow, in many respects, is already gone. She left kind of quietly. She's only doing about one show a week, if that. So her, Joy Reid, of course, may be out. So we'll see. The whole left-wing complex needs to be shown the door, as it were. Media, again, the legacy media is enjoying its lowest trust approval ever. We've never seen this. Remember, the Walter Cronkite years, it used to have stellar approval ratings and trust ratings. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. One of the latest ones, it was relatively dated. It was a few years back, but it was a AP study that found that only 6% of the population actually trusts the media. I mean, that is a crisis of legitimacy, the likes of which the media just is not going to be able to survive. So the media is breaking up as a result into these sort of enclaves. It's breaking up into these highly partisanized, segmented structures. And ironically, that's the way it was in the 19th century. That's an interesting part of it. In the 19th century, you were very overt in the newspapers that were printed at the time. You were very overt of what political position you were coming from. So like in Cecil County, Maryland, where I live next to, you had the Cecil County Whig and the Cecil County Democrat. So the Whigs had a paper and the Democrats had a paper. So you knew what value system was coming from, but then you were able to judge who had a better handle on the issues. And They were forthright of where they were coming from and the like. So you were able to just make a political judgment on their assessment. Today, you have a legacy media that is thoroughly in bed with the Democratic Party and George Soros and the like. And yet, at the same time, they're trying to claim that they're scientifically objective. So you have this horrible hoax that they're trying to perpetrate on the American people, and they don't buy it anymore. So the trust has imploded, and now it's breaking up more and more into those values-based, sort of partisan-based segments, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, Newsmax, and the like. And then I think that's going to break it up more and more into a news where at least the news presenters have to admit their radical bias, which of course Don Lemon always refused to do. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of network society news develops. Next. Well, Lolos, good to see you, my friend. The 1971 Bolshevik Revolution lies about the return of the emperor are very similar to the ones we hear from Q. Just saying. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Next. Marla Woods, I'm done with Fox. Marlana. Sorry, Marlana. I'm good. I'm done with Fox. A lot of people are going to be saying that. That's what I mean. I think this might be November 2020 all over again. We'll have to see what happens with their ratings dip. We'll obviously be keeping a very close eye on that. But there's no question you're not alone. I mean, if there's no Tucker, there's no Dan Bongino, of course, is gone as well. What are they going to do? Right. So maybe they'll call Dr. Steve. That was not a suggestion. Next. Hey, Bridget Denise. Why do you think they settled the file? I don't know. The only way Bill O'Reilly, ironically talking on the Chris Cuomo show, that's just this kind of, fringe sort of podcast thing out there at this point. But Bill O'Reilly said it had to do with Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch knew people were going to watch Fox no matter what, that the Dominion settlement wouldn't hurt their ratings, which he's right. I mean, we think the whole thing's stupid to begin with. And he didn't want to take the stand. He's a multi-billionaire, and multi-billionaires don't take too kindly to controversy and contention around themselves. So he thinks it was Rupert Murdoch who told his lawyers, settle. I don't want to have anything more to do with this. So that's all I understand. Jonathan Turley, my namesake, did a write-up, who works for Fox, and I have not gotten to read it. I haven't caught up with that, but you might want to check that out too and see what he had to say. Jonathan Turley on the Fox News settlement. Next. Well, Lolos, aren't you concerned? A total cultural and political control of the media. It seems China, Russia, and the U.S. are in the same boat. Okay, yeah. Well, Lolos, yeah. You bring in that Visegrad 4 air to yourself there. No, I'm not concerned at all. The level of trust in the media is so low right now. So I don't know what they're controlling. You could try to control narratives all you want, but if nobody buys it, nobody believes it. It's very interesting because it's something comparable to the way lies work in international relations. There's been studies that find that governments lie almost always to their own population, but almost never to international populations. It's very interesting. Governments almost always lie to their, at different degrees, to their own populations, but almost never to foreign populations. And the reason is because countries don't trust each other. Countries assume other countries lie to them. So those countries have to bend over backwards to show they're not lying. It's just assumed you lie because we don't trust you. Whereas at least traditionally, populations have tended to trust their governments. And that was the case in the 20th century. And that's exactly what totalitarian regimes were able to take advantage of. But even in China, Russia, you have pushback, you have blowback against the regime's narrative. There was a very interesting study on China the way social media, way half the time the Politburo surveils social media is to find out what popular opinion really is, so as to be able to periodically adjust the Communist Party's political policies in accordance with that populist sentiment. It is a dance. It is an interplay. This isn't old style, cold, hard, Soviet totalitarianism. I mean, in many respects, I think that's done. Even in North Korea, you've had to go the route of instituting a kind of emperor cult for Kim Jong-un. You've had to create a kind of religious, very religious-like system based on the Japanese Shinto version of emperor worship that we saw that reached its height in World War II, which one of the theories is that's what North Korea really is. It's not actually a communist or Marxist country. It's more of a Shinto fascist country, but with Kim Jong-un, with its own unique North Korean emperor theology in place of Shintoism. So anyway, no, I know. I mean, we'll see, but no, I think again, when it comes to mainstream media, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I think, as we see with all their polls and their trust, they're just imploding. So no one's going to take them that seriously at this point, any more than they do now. And what happened with Tucker is not going to help with them much at all. Next. Thank you. Nadavaz, thank you so much for the gift. Very kind of you. D. Bauer, thank you, sir, for the gift as well. Very kind. Chauncey, good to hear from you, friend. Do you think this will cause Tucker to become more right-wing now that he's independent? You and I are thinking the exact same way. That's why I said I think he's going to lead. He's going to assume a leadership, will potentially assume a leadership position now in the Patriot economy. I think that's the silver lining. Love to hear your take. Yes. So I do. I don't think he's going to be restrained at all about Fox. I think he's going to tell all. We'll see. There may be an NDA agreement he signed. We'll have to see, but I think he may blow the whistle. He may himself be a bit of a whistleblower in what's going on behind the scenes in Fox. So I think it's just devastating for Fox in many respects. But that's I don't wish Fox harm. For me, I have total confidence that the legacy media, of which Fox is a conservative part, the legacy media's days are coming to an end, and a new network society-based news world is rising, of which we're a part of, independent content creators. And I don't see even Fox surviving that. Having said that, yeah, I think Tucker will have he will break free of any chains that prevented him from saying what he really, really wanted to say, although he did very, very well. But now I think we're going to be able to see Tucker unleashed, and he could do whatever he wants. The parallel economy is his. That's the beauty of it. So very good, Chauncey. Good hearing from you. Hey, Johnny, you think Tucker will stay on at Fox Nation? No, I don't think so. I will see, but I don't think so. I think his contract with Fox is over. Maryland, Ducati, is there hope for my generation, Gen Z, for the GOP? There is. Gen Z, believe it or not, is the most conservative generation we have on record since we started analyzing conservative commitments inside of generations. So when you look at conservative commitments between the ages of 18 to say 26, I don't even know if Gen Z has hit 26 yet, but 18 to 26. If we go all the way back to the baby boomers, only about 18% of baby boomers, 18% of baby boomers when they were 18 identified as conservatives. Okay, so this would have been the 40s and 50s. Yeah, when they hit 18, so probably late 50s, mid 50s, late 50s. When you get then to, I think it was a Gen X, is that my next generation? Only about 19% of 18-year-olds claim to be conservative. You get to millennials, About 21% or so claim to be conservative. What was so fascinating with Gen Z is when asked, 18-year-olds were asked, do you self-identify as conservative, liberal, whatever? It shot up to just over 30%. It was something we'd just never seen before. It was absolutely fascinating. And there's a reason for that. Now, before I give you the reason, that means people go, what are you talking about? Everywhere I look, Gen Z is all, crazy and wacky and don't know what the meaning of this and that is and so forth. I didn't say 70% weren't nuts. Okay. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help you see the same thing from a different lens. You could have said the same thing about the millennial generation by saying 80% of them are nuts, as we know they are. But there's far less nuts than ever before at the beginning of a generation as it hits the beginning of adulthood. And one of the reasons for that is because conservative religionists have been having kids where liberals haven't. So liberals have been actually shrinking as a portion of the population. So we're seeing the whole aggregate population shrink, particularly in the United States. We've seen it in Europe for the last 3 decades. We've seen it in the United States since around 2008. That's when we began seeing it happen in the United States. So it's under the 2.1 replacement level per couple of children. That aggregate is shrinking, but inside the aggregate, there is a demographic that's exploding in population and growing by leaps and bounds, and that's conservative religions, primarily conservative Christians here in the States, a combo of conservative Christians and Christian Islamists in Europe. So ironically then, what we're seeing, and that's been going on for the last few decades, this extraordinary demographic fertility discrepancy, we're now starting to see the fruit of it. So for example, Christian colleges like Grand Canyon University just announced they've grown in their enrollment by 300% over the last 5 years or so. They've increased their enrollment by 300%. Liberty gives similar numbers. Regent University gives similar numbers. Conservative Christian colleges are growing in numbers astronomically. All the while, colleges across the board have been shrinking dramatically, 10 to 20%. So the secular liberal world is shrinking, and the conservative Christian world is growing. So we can actually see it. We can also see that in who actually goes to church. So in the 1950s, about 70% of the regular church-going population was liberal. It was a mainline liberal, Methodist, PCUSA, Episcopalian, all that sort of stuff, right? Only about 20 to 30% were evangelical. Today, it's the opposite. Today, it's 60, 70% evangelical, conservative, Bible-believing, and so forth, and only about 30% or so, 40% mainline. So you can literally see liberalism shrinking, and we've seen that across the board in our school districts. Districts that have 4, 5, 10 schools are consolidating, having their schools, to reducing them by 50% because there just isn't population anymore. And then the conservative Christians are going; they're either getting homeschooled, or going, which has grown by 700% in some areas of the country, or they're going to conservative Christian schools in some kind. So fear not, Gen Z is doing just fine. And we have studies, one particularly from Britain, that finds that people get 1% on average, 1% more conservative every year they age, I believe after the age of 22. So you got 18, and then ironically you dip when you're around 20. So 20-year-olds often are far more liberal than 18-year-olds, because 18-year-olds still have their parents' values. But what we're finding is those 20-year-olds eventually come back to those parental values somewhere in their mid-20s. And then they actually get more and more and more conservative as they age. Right. So there you go. That should give you some hope there. Marilyn Degotti, thank you so much, guy. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve Tucker goes to Newsmax. Do you think that means they now become #1 cable news network? Don Lemon could go to News Nation. That's right. That's how. Did they take Chris Cuomo? I think News Nation took Chris Cuomo. They get like 3,000 views in their YouTube video. I'm not to be a jerk. I shouldn't be a jerk like that. But yeah, I think Newsmax could. I'm right now. Newsmax is doing everything they possibly can to get Tucker. Because really, in the end, that's what you need. You need somebody who's going to and that's why I think they recovered from the disaster. Remember, Newsmax surpassed Fox after November of 2020 for a few weeks. People just protested, right? They voted with their feet. They left Fox. They were so upset by how Chris Wallace was handling things and so forth. They left, started watching Newsmax. Now, I have to admit, I'm not, I don't think Newsmax was ready for that. I don't think they were ready for prime time, as it were. Hopefully they're getting ready right now. They got to get a better look. I don't like the way they look. That light blue look is kind of makes me dizzy. I feel like I'm breathing in paint or something. But anyway, got to get rid of that look. Get a really nice, warm, beautiful. As you can tell, I like warm, dark, love soft lighting and all that sort of stuff. If they can get something like that and they bring Tucker in there, all bets are off. Next. JRG Projects. Tucker should take the 12 p.m. radio time slot from Clay and Buck and revive EIB. That is brilliant, actually. Rush got to start with TV back in the day. I hope history repeats itself. Yeah, I actually saw Rush. I got his book over there with the interview. I got to meet Rush because I was actually myself, and so a Bible study was with at Johns Hopkins at Peabody in Baltimore. We all took a train up to the TV show. It was right down the hall from Sally Jesse Raphael. Remember her? It's so funny because you had the lines when you're waiting to go into your respective studios couldn't be more different. You had these primarily women kind of freaky kind of look. And then you have all of us in our suits and ties and Rush was amazing. I agree with you. 1,000%. I think Tucker would be amazing for EIB. No disrespect to Clay and Buck. They've done great. But Tucker is, I think, a giant comparable to Rush of where we are right now. I mean, if we were to name the top 3 conservative broadcasters right now, I mean, Tucker would have to be up there. Clay and Buck would not be there. So, and again, I think Hannity just doesn't. Hannity's still living in the 1990s. Rush was far more astute to the populist currents going on because Rush was a populist. Rush was always an outsider. He was never accepted, and he never accepted the mainstream, as it were, the establishment radio media. Always did his own thing. Moved out of New York, moved down to Florida, did his own thing. Resisted getting onto, getting some show on Fox or CNN or whatever. He'd make his appearances, but he always he kept it EIB, kept it very. He's a real model for me. Very. I owe everything to Rush. He's just the greatest thing in the world. I'm gonna have to seriously take like a pilgrimage, as it were, to his gravesite in Cape Girardeau sometime. But I think JRG, that is a brilliant idea. And again, Tucker can basically do what he wants right now, whereas Don Lemon can't. That's the fundamental difference between those two. It's very interesting how these two careers at their networks, one I think permanent, but these two career-ending moments here. I don't think it's career. I find a different way of putting that. Just these two developments today highlight how radically Tucker and Don Lemon, how they're just in fundamentally different leagues. So they're both, at one time they were both prime time, both on major cable networks, but one was infinitely more significant than the other, infinitely so. And I think we're going to find that out because one can do whatever he wants now, whereas the other one, I don't even know what he would do at this point. But all right, Josh, next. Hi, Q. Fox gets rid of Tucker. We get rid of Fox. Yeah, that's a sentiment that millions maybe, I think, share with you right now. I shouldn't even say may. I think millions share with you right now. Like I said, I think this is devastating. With a U, capital UH, devastating for Fox. We'll have to see how they're able to pivot from this. I don't know how they will. I mean, who's going to watch? I think a lot of people are going to watch the 8 p.m. slot for like 2 minutes just to see who they thought they could replace Tucker with. Oh, and I just noticed high Q is the pound sterling. Thank you, from across the pond. Yeah, I take it you've been watching Fox over there, and yeah, we're going to have to see if Newsmax is able to take its place, or if it's just going to be more consolidated, full-blown parallel media like we have with myself and tons of others, with independent content creators giving you guys as much content as we possibly know how we can give. Next, Charles, my friend, Fox News, Daily Wire, PragerU, The Blaze, Turning Point USA. Most talk show hosts are conservative Inc. and don't actually talk about important issues beyond partisan politics. That's really cool the way you put that, Charles. Because, like, again, one of the things that populism is all about is overcoming that partisan divide, cutting across that partisan divide. That's what the Brexit vote did. I think conservative politicians, and I mean because the party, the Tories in Britain, were shocked on, when was it, June 23rd, I think, was the vote of Brexit, if I recall, in 2016. I think they were shocked, by the way, how many of their constituents, I'm sorry, did I say conservative? I meant Labor, forgive me, the left. How many of their constituents voted to leave the EU? Virtually every leftist Labor politician, partisanly speaking, was all pro-EU, pro-Remain. Even, I would say, most of the Tories were pro-Remain. But when they saw their voting base, the white working class, basically defect and vote, nationalist, populist, it was, they didn't know what to do. And then Boris Johnson gets elected in a massive landslide in December 2019, because those same voters, for the first time in their lives, for most of them, defected from Labor and voted for the Tories, voted for the conservatives. And then Johnson blew it. COVID came, and then the war in Ukraine came, and he started ruling and reigning just like any other technocrat, number one, and then number two, like a Tory who doesn't care about the values, interests, and concerns of the white working class. And so it looks like they're abandoning the Tories and going back to Labor as we speak. So they're cutting across the grain. And that's exactly how populist politics is working right now. Populist politics is working. It's redefining how we even think about a partisan divide, because it's no longer right versus left, Democrat versus Republican. It's now people versus permanent political class. And it's culture versus, it's nationalism versus globalism. And it's culture, people who want to defend and indeed flourish their civilizational cultural identity, versus those who want to erase it and replace it with a standardized one-size-fits-all globalist system. So absolutely, I don't think you get any of that in Conservative Inc. I don't think you get any of that. So hopefully that's why you come here, Charles. I try to give you as much of that as I can without question, because I do think that's the defining question of our day today. The globalist world is shattering, and a new civilizationalist, conservative, populist, nationalist world is rising. And it's rising in all of these different ways. That it's so funny you say that. I'm just sorry. I find that really cool. We should all be having. It should be at nighttime. I should have a scotch and a cigar, and we should all be talking. That's what we're going to be doing, by the way, at some point. You know that. Keep track of that, because our Insiders Club we were just talking about this the other day. Our Insiders Club is probably going to have a Scotch with Steve night. So you may want to make sure you guys get that. And we'll just do this. We'll be able to talk and chat and go back and forth. Oh my gosh, what was I going to say? I just lost it. Civilization. I lost it, man. I lost it. My poor dumb head. I lost it. The moderator, Josh, we talked to each other. We chat back and forth, and he just wrote to me, ha ha ha, you idiot. What was I saying about? Yes. It came back. Ha ha ha. Right back at you, Josh. I did a video on Bobby Kennedy. I did a video on Robert Kennedy, I should say Jr., right? Robert Kennedy Jr. And how populism, this was our live stream on Friday, and how populism was invading the Democratic Party. And I got one of our Insiders Club members mad at me because he accused me of siding now with RFK Jr. Now I've abandoned Trump and the Republicans, and now I'm pushing Democrats. And I was like, talk about two people on two fundamentally different planets. But the way you just said it was perfect. He couldn't see past this partisan framework of Republicans versus Democrats, right versus left, forever reified since 1994. It's Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton against each other forever. Whereas we now have a political paradigm that sees Republicans and Democrats as equally problematic. We now have a paradigm where Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi will get on MSNBC, and if I just showed you the transcript and ask you, let me know which one you think who is who. Let me know which one you think is Nancy Pelosi versus which one is Liz Cheney. You couldn't tell the difference. They're literally, the uniparty has never been more overt than it is right now. And it has never been more aloof to and alienated from the values, interests, and concerns of the people. So hopefully, again, that's why you're coming over here, Charles, and going to independent content creators. And so we can give you this. This is why, again, I get a lot of flack about China when I talk about China, because I don't talk the way Conservative Inc. tends to talk about China. I see China as part of this new civilizationalist age rising up. Now, not that I want to go live there, right? But I'm not looking at it so much as a political entity as I am a cultural entity, because the politics is downstream from the culture. So we all know that. People tell me that all the time. Well, then you got to understand. And China is going to do politics its way. Russia is going to do politics its way. India is going to do politics its way. And a revived nationalist populism here in the United States and throughout Europe. We're going to restore our politics. It's technically what it's known as restoration politics. We're going to restore our politics to a politics of the people. So there you go. I'm with you, Charles. That was awesome. All right, what do we got? MDE, Paul Ryan to Bud Light, home by beer. That's right. I forgot Paul Ryan is on the board of Fox, isn't he? Oh gosh, I don't know what he's gonna bankrupt. He's gonna bankrupt Fox the way that nutty VP bankrupted Bud Light. Great point. BW, Fox took cowardly way out and get coward results. Cowards results. Excellent. That's right. You take the cowardly out, you get coward results. Perfect. Sidhu, where can we watch Walsh today? Matt Walsh, good question. He should be on YouTube sometime today, I would assume. Antipathy, Fox is letting you know exactly where it stands outside of Tucker. You'll see all kinds of their affiliated stations posting trans acceptance crack. Then they're going to go the way of Bud Light. Yep. Get woke, go broke. No question about it. Thank you, Antipathy. Robert Fincher, how are you optimistic? I'm very black-pilled lately. Great question, Robert. So don't ever, optimistic because the world is moving in our direction, and this is we're seeing the world is moving in our direction. The world is rejecting globalism. Literally 90% of the world is turning its back on the United States and the EU. Okay. 90 is an exaggeration. Let's say 85%. Okay. Even Japan is growing increasingly uncomfortable with the United States and our hardcore approach to Russia. Right. So we're seeing sub-Saharan Africa. We're seeing much of Latin America, South America, Lula, Brazil. We're seeing even Eastern Europe, India, Russia, China. They're all moving towards a more nationalist, populist, traditionalist, civilizationalist world in their own way, right? It's a process known as re-territorialization. They're all re-territorializing in their own way. And then we're being stuck with this giant colossus of globalism and the liberal international order that nobody wants anymore. And now it's going to start imploding here. But keep in mind, what's happening is the very dictatorial democracy strategies that we employed around the world. Remember, when you went around the world and people were very bitter towards Americans, it was often because they saw American foreign policy as really being not just bullying, but also supporting some pretty rough figures out there, very dictatorial figures out there. So they see America as we're the beacon of democracy for all the world. They just see that as a joke, because America has employed what I like to call dictatorial or despotic democratic strategies on other populations. One of them being Ukraine and the Maidan Revolution in 2014 that was orchestrated, at least in part, by the U.S. State Department, Victoria Nuland, and these are the people, the John Bolton types and so forth. They ushered in this color revolution that overthrew a duly elected government, a democratically elected government in Kiev that just happened to be pro-Russian. Remember, almost half of Ukraine is pro-Russian, right? It's a third Russian, about half pro-Russian. And all of a sudden, nope, we can't have that. They threw them away. They overturned that. And then brought in democracy. Right. So what we have to understand is those despotic democratic tactics have fallen apart everywhere in the world. Nobody wants them anymore. Just look at the way African nations are pushing back against LGBT identity politics in their nation. Everybody thought they were going to all be flying the rainbow flag within a few years. That's gone. That's over. That's done. It's not happening in the African continent. It's going the opposite direction. So with that now, the key is the despotic democratic tactics are moving increasingly away from the international community, where U.S. deep state tried to hold on to use those despotic democratic tactics to hold on to its power. It's moved now from the international. Now it's here in the national. Now it's in the domestic. Now they are using the very despotic democratic tactics that they've used on other countries on their own now. Now it's all come home to roost. But it's all a sign that they're losing their power. That's, an animal that's dying is often the most violent. And so it's all a sign that they're losing their power. So how about that? I'll leave it at that. Even Fox, all this sort of stuff. So. All right, JP, I think a Tucker and an O'Keefe alliance would be great. Woo, I love that. See, this is why it's hard not to be optimistic. This is just amazing. Exactly. The possibilities here are endless. And again, he could never have done that on Fox. It's great. Awesome, JP. Nick Q, check out Liberal Hive Mind, Dr. Turkey. Hopefully that was a spell check error. I do get that sometimes. People tell me they get a doctor. I know Liberal Hive Mind. Liberal Hive Mind is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. 3 videos a day. I think I do 3 videos. If I recall, that was why I do 3 videos a day. So I saw he was doing 3 videos a day. And his channel is magnificent. I love it. Accure. Tucker was the of the truth teller on cable TV news. The fact hurts no matter what. Absolutely. And again, that I mean, Fox is going to have to find a way of replacing Tucker in some way, shape, or form, in some fashion, or else they're shot. So, and that to me would be sad to see that cable news no longer has anyone actually speaking truth at this point. It's all establishment narrative. Pierre, what will become of independent voice? Yeah, you're talking on Fox, or again, if this is the case right now, they're just going to have to come to the parallel media, the parallel economy that we're in, that we're participating in now. And then the idea is to make that economy even stronger. And just look at what Elon did, and then perhaps wait for an Elon to come in and take over Fox. Peter Thiel, hello, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is, I do want to do a video on Peter Thiel creating an amazing conservative world. It's very, very fascinating stuff. So I know independent voices are getting rarer right now on cable news, no question. So we'll have to see what they do to pivot. Otherwise, we're all going parallel media. Mets 21-28. Fox News just put a nail in their coffin. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't, at least short term. Again, we're already seeing it with the falling stock value. Lapswat. Will anything come of the Epstein case investigation? Well, it seems like Tucker was one of the ones that wanted to push that, didn't he? It just seems to me that the powers that be that are by definition implicated in this thing don't want it, and therefore it won't happen. Yeah, I just don't. At this point, I just don't see it. Right? Didn't Tucker? One of the last things he did is they asked for some video camera footage or some kind of, if I recall, digital record of the events surrounding Epstein getting perished, and they said it's all erased, it's all gone. Right? Who would keep? We only keep that for 21 days, don't you know? Statute of limitations. So clearly, the powers that be do not want Epstein. The truth of what was behind Epstein surfacing, clearly. So I don't think it will. That's just the way it works until we take over. Then we can have a lot of fun with it. Jay, thanks for your thank you, Jay. Means so much. Mark R, super sticker. Thank you, sir. Very, very kind. Thank you for the super sticker. Tom C, Dr. T, have you ever listened to Peter Zion? Yeah. What do you think of his end of globalism analysis and population decline? Yeah, sure. I mean, Peter Zion is from Stratfor. Stratfor is a geopolitical analyst firm for companies. So they're primarily for economics. Or they tend to analyze geopolitics in light of economic trends for big Fortune 500 companies to make their decisions better. And Peter Zion was one of their major analysts. I don't think he's there with them anymore. I think he's kind of striking it out on his own. A couple of things with Peter Zion. One, whenever he's talking about energy, he is brilliant. He's probably like the best. He is amazing. So his analysis and his understanding of energy markets are incredible. That's number one. When he ventures off into geopolitics proper, he's incredibly disappointing. He tends to push the regime narrative like to its lot. I mean, his understanding of Russia is embarrassing at this point. I mean, it's hard to even watch. It would be like listening to John McCain give a lecture on Russia. It is so bad. His understanding of demographics for me is incomplete at best. To my knowledge, he has no conception of the conservative demographic renewal going on among religionists around the world. If he does, he hasn't factored that in to a way that worked in Afghanistan, for example. The average age of Afghans were 18, where the average age for Americans were 38, and average age of Brits were 40. So 18-year-olds can outweight 38s and 40-year-olds, no problem. 20 years, no problem. We'll outweight you and we'll pick up where we started when you leave. Why is their average age 18? Because they're having so many kids. Why are they having so many kids? Because they're fundamentalist Islamists. So conservative religionists are having children, and liberals and liberal societies aren't. And that doesn't seem to factor into his understanding of demographics at all. And then his understanding of Chinese demographics, I think, is extreme. And his understanding of Russian demographics is extreme. And it doesn't seem to take into consideration the AI revolution that's happening at the exact same time, number one, to make up for some demographic downfall. And it's not taking into consideration the fact that everyone is going through a demographic downfall, downward decline, in terms of aggregate speaking. The United States, Europe, South Korea, you name it, Japan, we're all shrinking. It's not just China. It's not just Russia and so forth. And his whole hinterland thesis, I think, is just downright wrong. And again, very establishment. Having said all that, his thesis on globalization is right on. He recognizes that the globalist system is dead. He doesn't even say dying, if I recall. I think he says it's dead. It's gone. And we're going to have to now focus on a revitalized sort of America first. He won't use those terms, but a very America independent. We've got all the resources. We've got all the energy. We need to be energy independent, all that sort of stuff. We've got to focus entirely on home and then focus on bilateral agreements with nations here or there. Trump was obviously the major world leader to introduce that. And so he's a mixed bag for me. There's some good, there's some bad there. And I think that does it. Correct, Josh? Oh, we got one. I'll never forget you, Yano. Please explain to me, polling at 1300 LV can decide who's winning the next election, and all the politicians build strategy on the polling. I'm a left UG. Okay. And what's the LV? I take it it's not Las Vegas, is it? What is LV? Maybe you could show it. So I can only assume I know what your question is. How 1300 LV? Well, look, yeah. So bottom line, I'll try to abstract what I think is your question. So, if you're talking about electoral politics, our electoral politics is structured in such a way that you're not supposed to just win the majority of votes. You're also supposed to win the majority of regions. That's the idea. Oh, Josh is we've got 16 comments. All right, I got to zip through these guys. Sorry. We're supposed to have the majority of regions. What's happened in our nation today is we've seen an incredible city-rural divide develop, such that a politics of the city, which tends to be very liberal and cosmopolitan, is often dictating. There's that despotic democracy dictating politics for the rest of the state, which is more like Alabama, that rule. And that's not going to be able to last. So you have the Greater Idaho movement, nearly 20 counties in Oregon that want to secede from Portland and join up with deep red Idaho. It's just not going to last. Or you're going to get people like yourself saying, "Forget this. We're out of here." And you're seeing also the extraordinary de-urbanization that's going on, where people are leaving their cities because you have these Soros-funded DAs that simply aren't prosecuting really dangerous repeat offenders. So we're finding the liberal world is imploding, and you see it in Chicago, you see it in New York, you see it in Philly, you see it in San Francisco and LA, you see Detroit, the Detroitification of our cities. And the more it implodes, the more people are moving to red counties. That's very important. It's not just red states. We did a video on this, I think, last Thursday, to red counties. So even in blue state like New Jersey, my neighboring New Jersey here, even in blue states, blue counties, the bluest of the blue, like Newark or Trenton, and they're seeing population decrease, and the red counties, the counties that voted for Trump, are seeing population increases. So it's shifting. People are moving, and hopefully they don't do. It doesn't look like it's happening. It seems the majority are getting redder because people are voting defensively. But we do have some victims of that, like Maricopa County, that have been becoming more blue as more and more people from California come in. So we'll have to see. It has mixed results, but certainly in Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, we're seeing it in Virginia. It's making the states more red, which is really good. Virginia, I shouldn't say more red, but redder than it was since it was becoming a very blue state. Thank you, Yano. I hope I answered the question. All right, let me zip through. Jamie, why rhinos are attacking the conservative people of this nation? I don't think we can win 2024 if we have rhinos among us. We need to clean house first. Yeah, I hear you, Jamie. So in the end, the rhinos, what were they? They're about 7% of the population. Rich Barris, People's Pundit, has done this. Rhinos are about 7% of the population of the Republican Party. These are the people that, like the Liz Cheneys, who refuse to vote for Trump. They're never trying. Those are the hardcore rhinos, right? Then you have the hardcore MAGA crowd. They're about 45% of the party, 45, 50% of the party. What makes RFK Jr. so interesting is not only does he sound like Trump half the time because he's a populist. Now the other half is going to be weird. Got it. He's going to fulfill his bona fide leftism, no question. But the other half is pretty darn good. It impressed Stephen Tucker. What would be interesting is if we could shave off the 14% of support that he has inside the Democratic Party, shave that off and bring that into a new MAGA party and boot out the rest of the rhinos. Now, keep in mind who these people are. They're anti-vax, right? They're certainly anti-vax mandate. They're anti-censorship. They're anti-lockdown. I mean, these are pretty these are patriots. Okay, now they tend to be more left wing on other issues, and that's going to have to get worked out. But again, in a multiple state context, in a federalist state context, if Vermont wants to be left, let Vermont be left. But for gosh sake, please be America first. For gosh sake, please be against vax mandates. For gosh sake, please be against all the lockdowns and all the censorship. We can all agree that can all be pre-political. So if we can bring in 14%, we can kick out that 7%, and those rhinos can go and either form their own pathetic little party or join up with what's ever left of the Democrats. So anyway, don't worry. I think we're okay at this point. I don't think you have to worry about them too much right now, but we'll have to see. We need better parents. This is La Cavalosa. We need better parents to this America we're giving birth to. Keep an eye on baby America. Amen. I love it. I love the way you're thinking. Absolutely. Civic responsibility. Again, we replaced civic education with woke cultural Marxism. So we taught our kids to hate. Oh, by the way, Josh, so this is what makes Josh so awesome. LV, likely voters. Okay, now I get was it Yano's question? Likely voters. Why do we worry about what 1,600 likely voters? Gotcha, Yano, gotcha. Yeah, so that's polling sampling, and that's where you get into your polling margin of errors and so forth. The fundamental question is, to what extent are those likely voters reflective of sentiments at large? And you're right, that is very, very hard to gauge. No question. That's very hard. We should not be bending the knee to the whims of a poll. That's right. Absolutely. Very good. Ozzy's Robots. This shouldn't surprise anyone. Lachlan Murdoch is leftist. That's right. He is, unfortunately. Supported Hillary, and the Murdochs are Disney's largest individual shareholders and second overall. Yeah, I mean, Murdochs are rabidly anti-Trump. So that's why I do wonder if this had something to do with Dominion or what have you. I don't. We'll have to see what happens there. Good point, Ozzy's Robots. Hi, Q. Susan Rice steps down. The rats are fleeing the sinking ship. Interesting. She must have stepped down while we're still chatting there. Thank you for that, Hi Q. Yeah, interesting. So Susan Rice is stepping down. I'll have to look into that. there's no question, especially with the CIA whistleblower. We did our first video on that, saying that the Biden administration asked the CIA to coordinate that fraud of a letter, right, with all the so-called security experts and intelligence experts, all 51 of them, 52 of them, all claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, when they, in irony, were giving us they were the ones who were doing the disinfo campaign. I mean, we're finding it's getting exposed. Whistleblowers are coming out, exposing the FBI, exposing the CIA, exposing the three-letter organizations, the NSA. It's going to happen. It's going to fall. That's the sense I'm getting. That's why they're so desperate. That's why they're clinging, and they're being so despotic. Thanks, IQ. Annie Mae, thank you, Annie Mae, for the gift. Tom Bryant, Tom, they're going to divide us until we go at each other. Then they can step in, take guns, and take over. None of them truly care about anything they're pushing. I agree with you 1,000%, Tom. This is what made, I think, Tucker's analysis so good. We are, and I've been talking about this ever since Trump was indicted, or was announced he was going to be indicted. We're more united than we've ever been before. The people are more united than we've ever been before. It's the way we're portrayed in a radically hyper-partisanized media that tries to push the ruling class's narrative that we're divided. So, for example, racism has never been at lower levels than it is right now. Every study shows that, and that's widely admitted. So, interracial marriage was opposed by about 90% of the population 50 years ago. Today, it's supported by 90% of the population. We have never been more racially united than we are right now. And yet, our government has never been more obsessed with racism than it is right now, pushing CRT and all that sort of stuff, and reparations, and trying to keep us divided. We've never been more anti-war, even at the height of the Vietnam War. We've never been more anti-war than we are right now. And yet all the permanent political class is doing is beating war drums with Taiwan, Ukraine, Iran, you name it. So absolutely, they're doing everything they can to divide us so as to be able to rule us. No question. If we don't take that bait, if we unite, that's the populism, the people versus the permanent political class. If we unite, we will be bigger than anything they can do. That's what brought down the Berlin Wall in the end. It was a populist revolt. And then the people who really hate themselves for going along with this sham in the permanent political class, they end up turning, and then the police refuse to enforce the rules, and it's over. It's gone. The whole thing falls apart. Professor Spud, about your video about 1 million leaving blue counties, it's just as fast per capita as people leaving East Germany for the West in the 1950s. That's so cool, Professor Spud. I said something like that there. I said it's like the Berlin Wall, all over again. It's like, yeah, it's absolutely right. When given the chance, again, this is the funny thing. I get people complaining about China and Russia, and even to a certain extent, Turkey, India. And I'm like, guys, I mean, why do you keep thinking they're our enemy? Why do you keep doing that? It's because the deep state wants you to think that way. And unfortunately, a lot of guys in conservative Inc. who are paid to tell you to think that way, as I understand it, at least, by Taiwanese businessmen, to stoke anti-CCP sentiment. Again, I'm not saying CCP is anything I want to write home about. I'm saying the real enemy ain't in Beijing. The real enemy is in Baltimore. Right? President Trump has said that. I'm not saying anything that President Trump hasn't said, right? We need regime change here. The real enemy is here. That's where remember what he said in his interview with Tucker. We can handle Russia. We can handle China. I did. I handled them. We could keep them at bay. What we can't keep at bay right now, what's gotten out of hand, is the deep state. They're the problem. So ironically, yeah, we've got a kind of invisible Berlin Wall. And it's between blue counties and red counties. And when given the chance, people are just getting out of blue counties faster than you can. Yeah, it's an astonishing thing. So great point, Professor Spud. We think alike. The engineer chef, Elon Musk, should scoop up Tucker and launch a news media feed inside of Twitter. So again, I love how you guys are thinking. This is awesome. With Tucker would come a lot of new traffic. Love it. Absolutely love it. What if you had Twitter news? It'd be amazing. It'd be great. Tucker Carlson will go and be Trump's running mate. Woo. Again, I love it. I love the way you guys are thinking. This is awesome. Thank you, Micah. Eric, thank you for the gift. Very kind. Kimberly, thank you for the gift. Very kind. Makes it easy to kind of zip through these, right? Handemold, thoughts on Biden administration banning 16,000 Americans in Sudan. I was going to do a video on Sudan today before all this came in, while celebrating exhilaration of 100 embassy staff and family. It's yeah. I mean, it's typical. Yeah, it's typical Biden liberalism that sees human beings as expendable in the name of just political antics. So what you saw in Afghanistan was, I mean, it was clear, absolute imbecility on display for everyone to see. It was an incompetence beyond anything we could ever imagine. And then we look back at what happened, and then they traced out how well we got rid of the airfield first was at Bragg Airfield first, and then without that, we didn't have the cover to take care of Kabul airport, and blah blah blah. They were looking at just how utterly incompetent everything was. But in the end, they never admit to it. Nobody loses their jobs, and shut up. We do what we want. As long as the permanent political class wasn't harmed, then no foul. That's their mindset, and that's exactly what you're seeing in the Sudan right now. Exactly what we're seeing. We should have a video up on it tomorrow. I'll try to address it a bit more tomorrow. But there's some shenanigans that I will save it for tomorrow's video. But there are some shenanigans going on in Sudan with the State Department, U.S. military. Again, the United States doing everything it possibly can to just try to hold on to every inch of power that it can. Not U.S., I should say, but these globalist elites trying to hold on to this liberal hegemony as long as they can. It's all falling apart. Tom C. Dan Bongino was axed from Fox last week. The Murdochs are cosmopolitan globalists. Couldn't agree with you more, Tom. They are. There's no way around it. I mean, look at the way Sky News is owned by Murdoch, and they give crumbs to us. They'll do a good Biden hit piece. He's certainly no fan of Biden, but when it comes to understanding the rising civilizationalist world around us, they hate it. They can't stand it. They don't want anything to do with it. Larry Whitaker, since we should not be troubled for these things must come to pass, why are you positive about the current rise of populism against globalism? Isn't the spiritual over cultural war? Isn't the spiritual over cultural war? Isn't the spiritual war over? Oh, okay. So I see what you mean. So, okay. I think I get what you're saying, Larry. I want to answer this rightly. So, yeah. Well, maybe I'll answer it I'll answer it the way I think I should answer it. And hopefully hopefully I'll tie it all together. I want to be very careful about splitting the spiritual and the cultural. We are not Gnostics. We are not Gnostics. Now, the Apostle Paul clearly makes very clear, Ephesians and so on, that we fight a spiritual war, not a cultural war. Now, how does he say that without becoming a Gnostic, in effect? Because the way I understand it, because God is fighting the war in a way that makes no cultural sense. This is a nice addendum to why I'm so optimistic. God is fighting the war in a way that does not make sense to any particular culture. It's another way of putting it. right? So what's it? Jacob I loved, Esau I hated, right? God chose Jacob. He did not choose Esau. What is he saying? Now he's choosing Gentiles and not choosing Jews. Romans 9. Now, what's he saying there? God's grace doesn't operate by the logic of this world. And I think in a sense, that's where faith kicks in. We have to have faith in the sense that God uses the things that are shamed by this world, that are discarded by this world as worthless, ironically, in order to shame those who think they're of worth, the wise, as he puts it in 1 Corinthians 1 and 2. So I'm with you in the sense that I think we have to be very careful we don't get caught up in the partisanized rancor that characterizes our age. I'm with you, and I try to take the best of it, and often the most fun of it, but then I always try to put it in this larger geopolitical picture where I'm discerning God's move, what he's doing. That we want to avoid that, while at the same time avoiding what does tend to plague American Protestants. Got to watch out for that. Something that's certainly been the case since, I would say, the 18th century, which does tend to plague American, and that is to create this spiritual cultural divide. You can't do that. Christ in himself brought heaven and earth together. He brought the spirit and culture together. We do, after all, the church is cultural. The church celebrates the Lord's Supper, which is bread and wine. It is grain and fruit, which you get on the third day of creation, coming out of the water, baptismal water. Third day out of creation, grain and fruit transfigured into bread and wine. Those are cultural elements. Cultural elements are sanctified by the Holy Spirit. The cross is a culture. It was a symbol of Roman dominance, which now becomes the tree of life. It becomes Edenic. So it gets transfigured, but it's not like we're Gnostics where we have to get rid of culture. Gnostics hated culture. It's called, the Greek word's paideia. They hated paideia. It comes from the word child, how to raise a child, how to initiate a child into your culture. They hated paideia, and they wanted instead just pure spirit, pure heaven, nothing more. And we're not that. That's not us. That's actually a heresy. So what we have to do is we have to avoid, I think, the mistakes that the original audience of Paul would have made, which was to try to understand and interpret what was happening in their world according to Roman, or even to a certain extent Greek, Roman, Greek, and Hebraic logic, the logic of Rome and Athens and Jerusalem. And what Paul is saying, no, there is a new logic that's breaking into the world, and it is the logic of the New Jerusalem. But it is a logic that is breaking in. That's key. So, since we should not be troubled, for these things must come to pass, why are you positive about the current rise of populism? I see that current rise of populism as fundamentally a Christian revival. That's basically what I see. The populism is itself a Christian revival, and globalism is waning because liberals aren't reproducing, whereas conservative Christians are. And that's primarily within the Western Hemisphere. We're seeing it in other religious traditions around the world, but religion is making a massive comeback, and as part of that, I see an extraordinary move of God among his people. So there you go. That's how I would answer. All right. Oh my, I get bogged down in these questions because these are great. Perpetuity. Tucker Carlson should become the new EIB network host. That's the second call for that. That would be amazing. Eaters of Dead. Fox equals 5. That is awesome. That should be a t-shirt. Fox equals Budweiser. I love it. All right, Rick, Pierre Polyev is our hope to end despotism in Canada. Amen to you. I love Pierre Polyev. I'm wearing my cruise shirt. I got this when I did that Caribbean cruise. Rick, the best conversation I did. I met some fans. I met some people. We met a few people who know the channel and all. One of the best conversations I had. It was actually over a nice Americano, espresso with cream, and I was sipping, and we're chatting in the mall area of the ship. Was with a fellow Saskatchewanite. Is that how you would say it? Fellow from Saskatchewan, and oh gosh, we probably talked an hour and a half. It was a blast. What a patriot, what an amazing guy. And anyway, so Rick, you guys, in Canada, you're the best patriots on the planet. You guys are amazing. The trucker the Freedom Convoy was the center of the world for those few weeks that it was happening, and the whole world, patriots all over the world, like, these guys are awesome. They're amazing and peaceful and family-oriented, faith-oriented, freedom-oriented. You're amazing. Pierre Poilievre should do it. He should. Well, we'll hope, by God's grace. Trudeau's blown himself out. Yeah, and then I don't think we have to worry about Liberals getting an outright majority. That's for sure. What's the other guys? The NPD. I'm forgetting now. The progressives. Hopefully we could shrink them a bit. I mean, the big thing for you guys is just being able to break through the populist walls, that you have with Canadian populism. It tends to be very regional from what I've read and seen just in the polls. So your French populists, as it were, Quebec populists, tend to vote against, say, Albertan populists or Saskatchewan. Sorry, Fran, I'm getting tired now. Populist. So the regional populism is a bit of a problem. We don't have that as much here in the States. You're going to have to overcome that. Hopefully, Pierre Poilievre can unite the populace. If you can, it's going to be awesome. I love it, because the Stephen Harper coalition, I think, is dead, and this is much more working class coalition that you're going to have to tap into. But we're facing the same problems here with the Republican Party. So hopefully your conservatives don't disappoint. Excellent, Rick. God bless you, man. Eaters of Dead, why would they do this right when conservatives start uniting against Bud Light? Conservatives just started and is on a roll. Fox time is up. Yeah, I hear you. The timing is so stupid here. But again, I think we're all online. So the days of depending on what do you call it? Cable news for our information are over. So, whoa, boy, guys, we've been going an hour and a half. Woo! I feel like, doesn't Robert Barnes or Duran, those guys could go over like 2.5 hours. Well, what do we got? We got Maryland. Dougody, do you think Mark Robinson win? Oh, in North Carolina 2024. That'd be very exciting. He's a lieutenant governor now, isn't he? So hopefully, yeah, I mean, he's wonderful. I think he's fantastic. And again, part of this new sort of Christian nationalist movement that's sweeping the country, just again because of demographics. We're rising and they're shrinking. There's no way around it. So we'll have to see. Absolutely, certainly can. Paul, I'm very high but loving the show. Let's go, Brandon. Well, very good, Paul. Very good. Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Absolutely. Love it. Count Frederick, I think we need the expert to tell us what is best for us and vote that way. I mean, after all, they're so right about COVID and the fake laptop, etc. I think, smell that? I think that's sarcasm coming from Count Frederick. Yes, I think you're right. They're so wrong on everything. But no, we've got to trust them on who to vote for. It doesn't quite work, does it? Hence why their trust is an all-time low. We're going through a crisis of legitimacy. Jabal, people moving from blue states to red states, not a good thing. They'll bring their voting habits with them and eventually turn the red states blue. Not necessarily, Jabal. Not necessarily. I get what you're saying. And again, thank you for the pound sterling. I love, God bless you guys across the pond. It can happen. And I think it certainly has happened in Maricopa County. But we've seen the opposite happen. We have the studies to back it up. We had the opposite happen in Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. So you don't have to necessarily worry about it, but it is a worry. No question. You have to watch out for that and really convince them. Do not bring the politics you left over here. SXS Outcast. If it were any other country, this may be funny, but come on, man. This is the United States of America. Yeah, I don't know what to say. SXS. We're the center of globalism. We are the globalist power. Since the end of World War II, we became, for at least 7 years, the sole superpower. Then the Soviet Union came in. We had our two spheres of influence. Soviet Union falls in 1991. We become the singular unipolar power on the planet, and we start pushing liberal globalism on everybody else. They are rebelling. They're pushing back. And the United States is now going through an identity crisis to figure out how we're going to live in a new multipolar, civilizationalist, nationalist, populist, tribalist world. And we're going through this identity crisis abroad and here at home as globalism too begins to shatter. And now all these competing power interests are coming in to either try to save it or to try to replace it with a kind of ethno-tribalism, as even one of the leaders of BLM admitted that they are a Black nationalist movement, or with some kind of civic nationalism that has America first, Trump MAGA at its core. So we have lots of different ways this is working itself out. So it's really complicated. All right, let's zip through. Yano, make Italian great again. Amen. Giorgia Meloni, Brothers of Italy. I would love to see them continue to, again, you have, Yana, I don't need to tell you this. I mean, you got Brussels there basically treating everybody like vassal states. So it's very, very difficult to control economic policy and foreign policy. But I think Giorgia Meloni is doing an amazing job morally, domestically, in terms of bringing Italian politics into the fold of the new nationalist populist movement. So, yeah, I mean, and if anything, Italy is far and ahead of most other nations in Europe right now on that, with Salvini and Lega and all that. Charlie, how do you think Robinson will win North Carolina's governor's race? We're going to talk about that. Yes, I think he certainly is poised to win. Raymond Piper, shout out to Linda Hunter, top patriot from Australia. Big shout out, Linda Hunter. Ray Vall, we do an interview with James Cuddies of Calvary Chapel, Signal Hill, and Benny Johnson, the Benny Show at some point. Steve, both are good. James goes over biblical prophecies around the world. I don't know. I mean, I know Benny Johnson. He's terrific. Sure, I'd love to do an interview with Benny. Benny's terrific. Don't know James Cuddies, so I'll have to check him out. Laura Diamond Wise, what's the likelihood that you can get an interview with Tucker? Nil at this point. I don't even know. I mean, I will admit it to you guys. I'll tell you, it was going to be a great surprise. We were in talks with Tucker's people. We were in talks of me getting on their show, and so I was devastated to hear this news just on a personal level. So if we can continue some of those, again, we'll have to see who's representing him now. I would love to interview Tucker. It'd be amazing. Wouldn't that be amazing? Now he's coming on my show. Eric, I'm free no matter what rules surround me. If I find rules too obnoxious, I break them. I am free because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything I do. Robert Heinen. Tucker is free. Hey, that's beautiful. Thank you, Eric. That's beautiful. Mushroom Man, did McCarthy give the recording to Tucker or to Fox News? I thought it was to Tucker. But it may have been to Fox. It's a good question. That's a very good question. I never even thought about that because it seems like Tucker got shut down on that. Deborah R., as Tucker has said in the past, it's not right versus left, but good versus evil. Amen. Very good. You're barmy. We need true cultural hero. Rocky Balboa. Yes. You should catch my video last week. Hopefully you did. Rocky's the best. Hero to me as a kid. Sylvester Stallone remains a hero to me. Blah, blah, blah. God bless you, doctors. God bless you, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for that. Very kind of you. We did it. We got through them all. Gang, I love you guys. How long we do? Almost an hour and a half show. All right. Well, we're going to keep a very close eye on how things develop. We have a third video coming on later today. Keep an eye out on that. You're going to really love that as well. God bless every one of you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.